Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam.
Hmm.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
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 Yeah.
Morning,
So, how are
morning,
you
good
this
morning, sir.
morning? Are you all right? Okay, I think I am glad to see you all this morning. It's very um, first time I think you meet me. Okay, and um, the lecture is also actually new to you, literature, or maybe you've got introduction to literature before. Is that right? Introduction to literature. So before taking this, you must take introduction to literature first. Then you take this literary appreciation. Then later you take seminar. Okay. Um, but actually, this lecture is the continuation of your extensive reading course. Okay? Extensive reading course. In your extensive reading course, you were assigned to read maybe one or two literary works, maybe novels or short stories, and then you're asked to make a report of your reading. Actually, in the extensive reading activity, you're supposed to do analytical reading. So there are uh, different kinds of reading activities: reading for understanding, then or reading comprehension. You have reading for enjoyment. You have analytical reading. You have um, um, reading for research. Okay. In extensive reading, I think you have done things like uh, choosing the right or the most suitable literary work you want to read. Then maybe you work in groups, but I don't know. But actually, literary appreciation is the continuation of the course, extensive reading. And unfortunately, in my experience of teaching this course, some students used the same way of doing activities in this lecture, literary appreciation. Well, there should be differences between this lecture and extensive reading. Okay, this lecture is combination between skill and knowledge, while extensive reading is mainly emphasized on the ability of reading skills, improvement of the widening of or the extension of your reading activities from limited kind of text to full length text. That's the difference. But you know, in taking part in joining this lecture, then first thing you have to do is to set up in your mind that okay, I'm going to do different things in this lecture because this is different. This is different from extensive reading. Okay, so try to get new experience in reading literature. Okay, try to get new experience in reading literary works. Well, this is it. Literary appreciation is the ability to. This is the I always begin my lecture by explaining uh, the ontological aspects of the course name, literary appreciation. So literary comes from literature. Appreciation comes from it's originated from appreciate, So literary appreciation is lexically we are trained to appreciate, to esteem, to honor, to respect, or to admire literature. That's the lexical definition. But the practical definition of this term, and this is what we are going to do this semester, covers three activities. First, you are expected to be able to gain pleasure in understanding as well, at the same time, simultaneously, of literature. So this is not a technical reading, this is not analytical reading, but this is a pleasure reading and reading for understanding. Okay? So do not feel stressed when you read a literary work. And you know how to be free from pressure like that, psychological pressure, because, oh, great, I have to read a novel with 400 pages. How can I read this? 400 pages. It must take a very long time to finish all these pages. Well, that's the first strategy that you must do is choose the most affordable literary work. I mean, choose only the literary work that you can afford. You afford to read it. You can read it successfully. Of course, um, you can try to find reviews about that literary work. In the review, you would be able to see whether the work is difficult or is easy for you to understand. It is manageable for you to finish reading the video, or you need maybe more time to finish reading that literary work. That's the first strategy. Try to get the most affordable reading material, literary work. Do not force yourself to take a literary work that you don't really like. If you start with that kind of decision, you choose to read a literary work that you do not like, actually, then that's the beginning of boredom. It's beginning of pressure, psychological pressure. And that's not a pleasure reading. So this week, I think you must try to find a literary work that you are going to read this semester. Only one literary work. You may choose novel, you may choose a short story, you may choose a collection of poems, you may choose a play. Maybe. Okay, but again, I'd like to remind you that whatever you decide to read should be manageable, should be affordable, should be understandable. Okay, should be enjoyable. Okay, do not choose a literary work that will make you sad, that will make you burdened. Okay, do not choose a literary work that you do not really like. Okay, how do you like a work before reading it? Of course, I told before, try to read the review of that literary work. Okay, in the internet there are reviews of literary work, so you can see, for example, a book review or book, um, yeah, book reviews everywhere in the internet. So from the review, before you read it, then you would be able to understand, oh, this is good for me, this is suitable for me, this is affordable, this is manageable, okay? And I hope I can enjoy reading it. Okay, that's the first pleasure, enjoyment, okay? Happiness. So while you read the literary work, you get pleasure, you get enjoyment, you get happiness. Of course, um, if the story is set ending story, then happiness here means not the emotion you are involved in reading the work, but the pleasure, the enjoyment, the happiness in reading, not the impact of the story. Okay? So, what I mean by happiness in reading, while the story is set, is you do not try to postpone reading because, oh, this story is not interesting. You know, a sad story can be interesting, okay, and can be enjoyable. A sad story can be enjoyable because you can enjoy the story, how people interact with each other in the story, how the setting is presented, how the plot is developed, okay, how the values, moral values, educational values, religious values, social values, cultural values are put forward in the story. So every bit of information in the story gives you some kind of pleasure, provides you a feeling of happiness. So happiness here, pleasure here means you are not burdened, you are not under a very great pressure. Okay. Of course, the story is sad, for example, and you may feel sad too sometimes. You can be sad too because of the story, but that's the impact of the story, of reading. Okay. And the second key is understanding. Understanding a literary work is a kind of effort, right? From uh, trying to interpret word by word in the text, trying to figure out to imagine how the story, the plot is developed, how things in the story are interconnected, how situations are developed in the story. So understanding here can be textually and also contextually. So textual understanding and contextual understanding. So that's why literature is interesting. It's very interesting, especially for those who are trying to learn culture, trying to learn how to deal with problems in his life. So understanding here is also uh, the feeling, the satisfaction of knowing everything in a story. If you do not know everything in the story, then that's not understanding. In Bloom's term, understanding is the ability to answer questions why. Okay? If you can answer question why of the story, then you understand the story. For example, why is the main character like that? Why is the other characters? Why are the other characters like that? Why is the story sad at the beginning and happy at the ending? Or why is the story happy at the beginning and sad at the ending? Or why is the story sad all the time from the beginning to the ending? That's understanding. Okay. So the first purpose of literary appreciation is you read with happiness. There is no feeling of reluctance. You are enthusiastic about reading that literary work. You are happy. Okay. Maybe you read a literary work, a novel of say 300 pages in 4 hours or 5 hours. Of course, with pauses, because do not force yourself to read a book without any pauses once in a sitting. That's not a good idea. So try to read uh, a novel of 300 pages in maybe 3 or 4 sittings. So 1 hour reading, and then take rest, pause the reading, then continue maybe after a while reading, and then another hour, you take rest again for 5 or 10 minutes. So try to understand the story, try uh, to get to know any details of the story. And then start again, then break again, start again. Okay. Why? Because maybe it's just, well, might be you must read the story 3 or 4 times to really understand the story. Okay? Maybe 3 or 4 times reading, then you would say, "Oh, I understand the story. I've already understood the story." That's it. Okay, number B, understand the value. Okay, value and importance of literature. Value is something important. If you regard something is as important, then the thing should be valuable. Money is valuable. So the more money you get, the more value you have. But of course, in life, money is not everything. You need also other things, like maybe you need religious prayers, you need emotional satisfactions, and money cannot buy anything. But money is important. Everyone would regard it. Money is important. That's why money is valuable. Okay? So value, moral values. Moral values means what is important in the good or bad things that we do. Because moral has something to do with good or bad impression, good or bad activities. So if your society consider that you're doing something is good, then it is morally good in terms of society. So value is something which is important in life. And importance here means significance, the impact of literature for your life. Okay. So if you think that the story is good, and because you think the story is good, then you regard the story as valuable. It's a value to you. And the next question is, what is the impact of reading this story in your life? Does the story give you a particular impact on your behavior, on your attitude, on the way of life you are doing every day? Okay, for example, from reading a particular literary work, let's say, for example, The Great Gatsby. Have you read this novel, Great Gatsby? Or what's the movie? Maybe? Have you watched this movie, The Great Gatsby? Antonius, have you read or have you watched The Great Gatsby? No, no response. Puspita, Puspita Sari, have you read The Great Gatsby or watched the movie? No? Okay, no response. Okay, from the story, you would understand that, okay, money is not everything, prosperity is not everything. So in life, people need also friendship, also need loyalty from friends, from um, spouses, from partners. Human beings also need others' admiration, honor, because from the experience of the main character of the story, then he is very rich, but he cannot buy happiness. So, and importance of literature to your life is whether you learn something from the story or you do not learn something from the story. If you learn something from the story and you try to apply the value, the importance in your life, then that's significant. That's important. Some students wrote about character, educational values or moral values. And in examination, the students would be asked questions like, what did you learn from the story? What lessons did you take from the story? What lessons that you can apply in your life from the story? That's importance of literature. And from time to time, literature has been regarded as reading material which teaches people, the readers especially, how to get better life in the future from the characters, from the plot, from the settings. Number three, see, esteem, honor, respect, or admire the beauty and complexity of literature. Beauty and complexity of literature. Beauty first. Um, is there always beauty in literary works? The answer is yes. Because if a literary work is not beautiful, it doesn't contain any beauty, then it would it would not be interesting. People would not be interested in reading that literary work. And beauty in a literary work is presented through choice of words, diction. The words that a novelist uses in writing his or her novel is very, very selective. She or he does not use any words, okay, but this is the, I think, the advantage of writing a literary work, that you must select the diction, the vocabulary items we use in that literary work. Because you try to impress your readers by delivering meanings which are open to interpretation. So beauty here in literary work is supposed to be represented through combination of words and structure. So remember that literature, the, the core material of literature is language. Okay? The main material of literature is language. And beauty is created through the use of language. Beauty is developed through the ability of presenting language in the story in a particular way, in a certain way, in a special way. It, it is true not only for poetry, but it's also true for short story, novels, drama. So to be regarded as literary works, and one of the criteria is beauty. Okay, beauty. And then complexity. Yeah, complexity of literature. Actually, why is a literary work complicated? Because life is complicated, and literature tries to represent life. Literature tries to portray life. real life in text. And maybe you must experience reading a novel and watching the movie, a movie which is transformed, transformation of a novel, or it is adaptation of a novel, like what I told you before, The Great Gatsby. Actually, Great Gatsby was a novel. The novel was written in 1925, almost 100 years ago, and the novel has been adapted into movies three times, and the latest adaptation was in 2012. So there will be different experiences in reading a novel and in watching the movie adaptation. Why? The complexity of the story, the complexity of uh, setting, the complexity of people in the story are different. In reading a novel, that kind of complexity in literature is in your mind because you imagine everything with your mind. But in the movie, when you watch a movie, the complexity is presented through pictures, through objects in the movie. For example, complexity of relationships between um, again in the story of the Great Gatsby, between Jay, okay, between Jay and then um, uh, his girlfriend Daisy, and then Daisy got married with Tom, right? So the three are the main characters: Jay, and then Daisy, and Tom. The complexity of the relationship between these three characters in the movie are sometimes very absurd, very difficult to understand. Okay, but then um, at the end of the story, it is a sad ending story. Then we would understand better why, for example, Jay keeps his promise not to leave Daisy, while Daisy doesn't keep her promise to stay with Jay whatever happens. Okay, complexity of literature is actually representing complexity of life. Okay. Okay, so far, is there any questions? If you got a question, then you may raise your hand. Just click the hand on your screen and you may raise the question. Do not wait until you are confused. Because if you want to ask a question and you do not ask that question, you'll be confused. If you get confused, then you would not understand whatever lecture is. Okay? So try to ask question as soon as you get the problem. Okay? Any questions so far?
Not yet, sir.
Okay,
Not
Victor,
yet,
thank you.
sir.
Not yet, sir.
Okay, Juliana. Okay, okay. So
Maybe little
I
bit.
should regard that. Okay, you understand this. If you still have to repeat what I am talking just now, then later I'm going to put the recording of this lecture in my YouTube account, and the link would be given later in the group. Again, WhatsApp group. So you can watch the video of this lecture later to to understand more about what's being discussed now. Okay, let's go to how you would get your grade. At the end, and grades are very important to you, right? And I think you'd be very happy if you got A, right? But you would be very sad if you get B or C or D. Right? Now, question is how can you get A from this lecture? Of course, you must do all these three things, right? A, B, C. And how? How? How could you show me that you have already mastered ABC? In pleasure, understanding, understand the value and importance, esteem, honor, respect, and admire the beauty and complexity of literature. Well, in um, the vision of taxonomy of learning, uh, Gerson and Cottrell, and the highest level of learning is creation. Okay, the highest level of learning is creation. So someone would be regarded as learning something successfully if he or she can create something from that lecture. So in other words, this is a product oriented course. So by the end of this semester, you must submit a product, a creation. And the question is, what is your creation? The creation is drama performance, right? Drama performance. Okay, drama performance or short movie. It's up to you. You may choose. You are going to pick a short movie or a drama performance. Of course, since it is still under pandemic COVID-19, then maybe your design would be online performance or YouTube broadcast or maybe other social media broadcast. Or you could record the performance and upload the recording in your YouTube account. Because on-stage performance is, I think, not possible. We don't know in maybe in 2 or 3 months to come. But if it is possible for you to perform on-stage performance, a drama performance on stage, then that will be much better. So I think this week you try to go to school, okay? Maybe your alma mater, the high school where you graduated 2 or 3 years ago. Come to the school, talk to the headmaster, talk to the English language teacher there, and tell them, sir, we are going to perform a drama here. Is it possible for us to perform drama on stage? And the students are invited to the school to watch our drama, or what? Or it will be better for us to perform it through social media or through YouTube or through Instagram, or maybe through Google Meet or virtual meeting like this. And the students are asked to watch the performance from their homes through virtual platforms, Google Meet, Zoom, and so on and so forth. Okay? So first step for you is to come to a school, meet teachers there, meet headmaster, talk to them, that you need to cooperate with them, okay? And this is good for you and also good for the school and the students. In my experience before the pandemic era, we came to schools and they are very happy. They were very happy. The students were happy, the teachers were happy. And my students were also happy because they could perform in front of high school students, drama performance. So you can work this out in groups, of course, not one by one personally, individual, no, but in groups. Say, let's say a group of 6 to 8 students. One group consists of 6 to 8 students. So that's for this week. Try to organize your group. Try to decide what literary work you're going to, or if you want to adapt a story, a novel, a short story into drama, that's okay. Or you can also just try to find out the drama text or script on the internet and try to perform it. Of course, the performance of the drama should be limited in time, about 20 to 25 minutes performance. By performing drama, you would show all these three things. Right? Why? Because I could see from your performance one by one whether you really understand what you read or not. If you do not understand what you read, then your reading activity maybe was under very great pressure. You were not happy when you read the story. The value and importance of literature you can act out in on the stage, on the screen. If it is not on the stage, then it is on screen. Whether you really value the story, whether you really apply the story, the message of the story in your life. Because acting is basically the manifestation of your feelings. Okay? The manifestation of your what you think, your thought, your feelings. If you think that oh the story is not important, it has nothing to do with my life, then maybe your acting is not good. Your acting is not good. But if you think that oh the story is important, I learned something from the story, I learned something from the character I play, then your acting is natural. Your acting is uh, driven by your own motivation to show that this story is really significant to me. Okay? I could see all those things from the performance. And also how you esteem, you honor, you respect, you admire the beauty and complexity of the story. So, from my experience, there are students who just go on stage and then that's it, nothing more. Just go on stage, try to remember the sentences or the dialogues without any um, without any esteem, without any respect, without any improvisation, then that's it. Very, very dry. Okay? The dialogue is just like repetition, like reading, not actually dialogue. The intonation of the dialogue, for example, would reveal how you feel about the story, about your role. If you esteem the story, if you esteem the role you play, then it would be very clear from the performance, your performance on stage or on screen. Okay, that's the exam, right? So there will be no examination with this lecture, but I would score you from the product you create, from the performance the group tries to do. What about individual performance? Of course, I could see one by one. Right? How, for example, Antonius. How Antonius acts in the screen. How Puspita, for example, how Juliana. So everyone has his or her own way of presenting the story, the part of the story, the role. And the way how he or she presents the role would give me clues on these three aspects of appreciation. Okay, but of course, the step would start from reading. Okay, without reading, you would not understand. Then understanding, and then get the importance of the story, the values of the story. Then in the performance, drama performance or movie, you would be able to show your esteem, honor, respect, and admiration of the beauty and complexity of the story. Okay, now, is there any questions about this? Okay, Susmita.
Okay, sir, I want to ask. You say that next week we should to go to school to find that is it possible if we do the drama performance, but maybe mm, some of us or all of us is not stay in Yogyakarta.
Okay,
Maybe there is some people who already stay in their village.
okay,
So and then if the school in Yogyakarta do the online learning, how we should to do the drama performance? Thank
okay,
you.
okay. Thank you, Puspita. Well, I think the first step for you is to make a group, right? After the group is organized, then try to discuss the possible steps for the performance. Maybe, okay, your group agrees to have a performance in Jakarta. Let's say like that, okay? But not all of you are here in Jakarta. How can you manage to perform the drama here in Jakarta? Well, the answer is if the school is okay, okay, you may perform your drama here because we already open to class meeting, face-to-face meeting, or PTM, right? PTM, pertemuan tatap muka. Okay, you may perform your drama here. And okay, your preparation is if you still stay in your village, in your city, okay, train yourself how to act, how to develop your dialogues there in your home. But at the date, at least 2 weeks before the performance, then you must get together. Okay, of course, after you get vaccination, rules of protocol, health protocol, follow the rules, and you may get together and then practice for 1 week, and then in the following week, your performance is done there. Or, okay, that's one option. The other option is if all these things are not possible because of, yeah, reasons, many reasons, there is reasons, then okay, we are going to do not on stage, but we are going to do on screen through, say, for example, YouTube or through Instagram broadcast, YouTube broadcast or Instagram broadcast or other broadcast or Zoom. The most important thing is you get an agreement with the school that the students would be your audience. Okay, so this week you must get the audience. Whether the performance is on stage or on screen, that's not a problem. You can do either. on stage, physically, you come to school, or on screen. You are physically at home, but the performance are there on the student screens. Why? Because the students would be asked the responses about your performance. Okay, so whether your performance is good or not, it is not me to. It is not only me who judges the performance, but also the students. So this is the problem is I think can be the problem can be uh, solved by discussion, right, in your group, and then talk with school whether it is possible or not to perform on stage. If it is not possible, then okay, we agree to have a performance on screen and make an agreement on the screen, whether YouTube or Instagram broadcast or YouTube video. Okay, but you must make sure that all students later give the responses of your performance. Okay, so I'm going to prepare a response sheet later. Okay, so you give the response you to the students, and after watching your performance, the students fill in the response sheet and deliver the response sheet to me. Okay, Pushpita?
Okay,
Yes,
got
sir.
it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, welcome. Any other question? Well, this morning, 20 students, okay, are here, and I think three groups, okay, you can make three groups of performance. But remember, every student must read a literary work. So if you then adapt the story from one of the students, that's okay. For example, seven students, you must read seven works, right? But when you work in group, then you decide to choose one of the seven literary works as the work you want to perform on stage or on screen. Okay, is that clear? Because in the midterm test, you must,
Sorry, sir, can you repeat
yes,
it?
yeah, say one group consists of seven students, right? So in that group, there should be seven literary works to be read, okay? Because every student must read one literary work, okay? For example, Fika, you read The Great Gatsby. Puspita, you read The Grapes of Wrath, and so on and so forth. But but then you discuss what work we are going to perform. Then you agree, you come to an agreement that okay, let's perform Great Gatsby. That's it. So now what's the individual assignment for midterm test? So the individual reading is submitted at the midterm test date. Okay, so everyone must submit a report of his or her reading literary works on the midterm test date. Okay, so Fika submit the HSV, Puspita submit Lips of Red, and the other students submit the other reports. The report is about 1 to 2 pages, not too long reports, because I just later I'm going to explain the report, how would the report be. Okay, let me show you another slide. Okay, so this is your stage. you are on the 7 level. Okay, you are not in the first level, you are not the second level, but you are on the 7 or 6 level at least. Okay, so in this level college, reading widely. So you are not going to read any literary works, but bestsellers. Okay, you may choose. You can look for the bestsellers from the internet because there are lists of bestsellers, different years, different bestsellers. You may choose novels, you may choose poems, you may choose plays or films. And your activity is talks about books, John's Book Club. Yeah, but it's not possible this pandemic era, so I'm going to explain how the report will be like later in the next meeting. Okay, but for primary information, the report should be about 1 or 2 pages, not more than that. And yeah, you must be sure that your report is original. You do not just copy from someone else's. Okay, and that's it for this morning's meeting. Because I think if I talk too much, then you would be more confused. So I'm going to stop now before you are confused. Then try to consider what you're going to do this week. First, try to find the literary word you're going to read, okay, individually, and also the work that you are going to adapt into performance. Okay? And then try to contact. So what I mean by going to school is not always physically, but you may also contact the school. So if you have a contact number, and try to contact the headmaster and then the English teachers. Try to talk to them and try to make arrangement for the performance. And the most important thing is the day you get an agreement with the school about the performance, whether the performance is on stage or on screen. If on stage, then how would you deal with this in future arrangement? And if it is on screen, then how would arrange everything with the English teachers there? Okay, that's it for this morning. And I think you stay healthy, stay safe, and thank you. Good luck. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Salam,
warahmatullahi
sir,
wabarakatuh.
and thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.